Today we're going to be taking a brief look at Waltz and Jam, which is an upcoming action-adventure platformer game that I was able to get access to a preview for. This game is being developed by Flyaway Games, who you may remember as the studio behind Ascent to Zero, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. So I actually played Waltz and Jam before Ascent to Zero, but this video got delayed because I have a few other games that I'm trying to get through as well, and I've also been on a holiday, and now, as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit sick. So let's just take a look at this game. So the version of the game that I'm talking about today was apparently a creator exclusive preview of the game. There did used to be a public demo on the store page, but that was taken down a few months ago. I haven't played that, so I'm not exactly sure how much of a difference there is between the demo version and the creator exclusive preview that I played. This preview only consisted of the first 4 and a bit areas of the game, a tutorial area, a mission hub area, and 2 full levels of the game, as well as the first tiny piece of a 5th area, but I didn't really count that. The story of the game follows Waltz, a little recently resurrected ghost boy, and his little spirit dog Jam. Waltz and Jam have to travel around the world to collect 7 stamps so they can pass through to the true afterlife or something, otherwise they risk annihilation. Their words, not mine. The story is a pretty stock standard vehicle to drive an adventure game, but once you get exploring, the game has a very interesting world to explore and a few fun characters to meet. The world feels very lifelike and well thought out, though the moment-to-moment dialogue and writing needs another pass as it seems off, but this is also a problem that Ascent to Zero also had. But at least this game has the benefit of having a more interesting story premise from the get-go. I'd estimate what I got to see of this game in this playtest was probably about the first 15% of the game, as the playtest took me through to the first ticket and about a little of the way towards the second, which was about 3 and a bit hours of game time overall. So if the game is able to keep this pace, it'll be a sizable total runtime. But I do want to focus more on what I did get to play rather than what the game may end up being. So the gameplay of Waltz and Jam plays like a typical top-down action-adventure game. It has a very simplistic control scheme. You have a sword that has light attacks and heavy attacks, and you can also jump on enemies to damage them. Later down the line, you can unlock a boxing glove gadget, which does mix things up a little bit. You know, it has a huge knockback to it, and it does look like there is room for different gadgets later down the line. But for what I played, I was pretty meh on the overall combat. The sword is very kind of surface level and kind of just okay to use. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. The boxing glove was a welcome addition, but it was a little bit finicky to use, especially playing on a controller. And it feels like the combat just needs like that little bit of extra depth, and then it'll be great. Maybe a better feeling weapon combo, or just something a little bit extra there. And eventually there could be more things down the line that I'm not aware of. But from what I played, the combat is the part that feels like it's in most need of improvement. On the more positive side, I really liked the design of the 2 bosses in the game. The tutorial boss could use a bit maybe speeding up, but the design and the mechanics were fun for both bosses. On the non-combat side of things, Waltz and Jam also has a sizable amount of adventuring to do. The levels were fairly large and the map design was pretty decent. There are a good amount of puzzles, which is good, though none were too difficult. It did have that classic adventure game design where it'll show you a place on the map that you can't get to unless you unlock a new ability and then come back later. So there are things that make you have to revisit locations, but there is quick travel, so revisiting isn't so much of a slog, though I think I would prefer just a few more locations to quick travel to, because it feels like there was maybe 1 or 2 per map, and it feels like there probably could have been a bit more just to even out like the pacing back and forth throughout the map. The part I think Waltz and Jam is at its strongest is with its art style. It's almost certainly the part I liked about the game the most. The world design is very versatile, and the 4-ish areas I could explore were all unique to each other, and I loved a lot of the color work that was being done. The character designs of every character in the game are all really fun and creative, and I think that's why even though the story and the dialogue is a little weak in the game, the premise as a whole is tied together by how cohesive the world feels. And also the presentation and the menus, minus some of the obvious placeholder assets, are all very top-notch and very slick. The music is also pretty good. The best way to describe it is a mix of like the atmospheric tracks of Pokemon Pocopia with the boss tracks of like A Hat in Time. Though it's not as good as either of those games, that's the kind of vibe I got from the music. Typical adventure game stuff, pretty good. The last thing to talk about is performance, which my specs are going to be on the screen now. The game ran at a very steady 144 frames for pretty much the entire run of the playtest. I did have some drops, but it only got down to about 90 frames for like a few seconds here and there. And for some reason, these mostly happened while I was scrolling menus. So that's a bit weird, but early signs are good with performance. Unfortunately, I didn't get time to play this one on the Steam Deck before my access was revoked to the game, so we will have to forego the Steam Deck check this time, but because it's a playtest, I don't think it's too much of a big deal. Anyway, Alright, so to round things off, it's kind of a bit of a mystery to me how far away this game is from being released. For the most part, the game felt pretty solid in its design, and the only real spots where the game didn't feel finished were with sound assets, which were sometimes missing. There were a couple of bugs here and there. The second boss had a bug that killed me, but other than that, it was a pretty smooth experience from start to finish. So as it stands from just playing this playtest, I feel like the game does need a little bit of work on the gameplay side, but the positives to take away are that I think the art style is fantastic, the creature and character designs are really cool, the setting overall is very interesting. But yeah, I think the story needs a little bit more work, mostly with the dialogue. The writing is a little wonky, which is the same problem that Ascent to Zero also had. But also, unlike that game, the story in Waltz and Jam is more front and center here, and that feels like it might pose a bit more of a problem, especially if it gets a bit uneven in the writing. It does all feel fixable though, and the same thing can be said of the gameplay. It isn't at the level that I think it should be. The combat is a bit lackluster, but it could also be very easily fixed, I feel like. So after playing this playtest, Waltz and Jam is now on my radar, so I'll probably check this out when it releases, and I'd be interested to see how things have changed, and if it ends up being as good as the playtest was. And that's all I have to say about Waltz and Jam, so thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, then please give it a like, and if you are new, then please consider subscribing to the channel. As always, many thanks to my YouTube members, absolute legends. That's all for now. Sorry this video was on the smaller side and that I sound like I'm about to cough up a ball of dust. I'm planning on having a review for Tears of Metal coming up next, so I'll see you all when that one's going up on the channel. See ya.